Hello everyone. First of all, thank you very much for dropping the subscriptions to allow me to go past 80k subs. That's absolutely amazing. Now it's not going to be enough to warrant any sort of wargaming rewards. They only reward 100k. But I might do some sort of Christmas giveaway out of my own pocket to celebrate just how much support I've gotten from the community lately. I really appreciate it. Moving on though. The latest amazing grind that Wargaming has provided is the Puerto Rico. And well, if you've seen my vid, you know my opinion on that entire grind. But there's actually a better ship that you can get. And that's the Alaska, the tier 9. Now I actually say better because I objectively think the Alaska is just straight up a better ship. Puerto Rico has some obvious advantages. Deck armor is 38, Alaska is 36. Upper belt is 30 millimeters, Alaska is 28. Now 28 obviously isn't enough for the big caliber battleship guns, and they both have 27mm nose, so they both get overmatched by the big caliber battleship guns through the nose, and they both have overmatch proof deck armor. The Citadel on the Alaska is also a waterline, whereas Puerto Rico's is actually slightly below the waterline. Now this all sounds like some big advantages in favor to Puerto Rico, and in terms of armor, absolutely. But there's a lot more to it, a lot more that comes into play. First of all, concealment. As you can see, I got 12.2 kilometer concealment in the Alaska. The Puerto Rico has 13 kilometers of concealment. Yes, it has about 11k more health than the Alaska, but this health costs it a fair bit. It gets armor, it gets health, and it gets a bit of more torpedo protection, 28 versus Alaska's 13. And it's even half a knot faster. But here comes the big cost, the big bus, so to say. The rudder shift time on the Puerto Rico is 15.9 seconds. In comparison, Alaska has 13 seconds. That's a pretty big difference. And more importantly, the turning circle on the Puerto Rico is 910 meters, whereas Alaska keeps 850 meters. Once again, significant differences. So, it's a big and clumsy ship, but it pays for it in many different ways. The plane spotting is also significantly worse, something like 2-3 kilometers. And the guns, well, the guns. Alaska is of course infamous for its ability to punish and delete cruisers. That's what you're saying right now. These consistently accurate, powerful guns. Now, they both have 305mm guns, sure, but don't be fooled into thinking Puerto Rico is an Alaska with an additional turret. No. It is much worse than that. First of all, for some reason the Puerto Rico actually has 200 meters less range, 18.8 versus Alaska's 19. Now considering Puerto Rico is tier 10 and faces harder matchmaking, well, that's a bit of a downer to begin with. The reload on the Puerto Rico is also 22 seconds compared to Alaska's 20. With obviously the reload mod that I'm running, comparatively they're 19.4 versus 17.6. So 19.4 full build reload Puerto Rico, which is honestly pretty dreadful. A bit of blind fire. What did I say in my commentary? Go for those blind shots. You never know when you might finish off a kill by doing them. Turret traverse is identical, but there are still additional differences. Most importantly, the dispersion on the Alaska is far superior. Like, we are talking huge differences, even though they are the same guns. Well, they did mention in their Puerto Rico video that they modeled the Puerto Rico off the Montana. What they maybe didn't mention to you guys is that they also gave it Montana's dispersion curve. This means that the Puerto Rico is by far the least accurate tier 10 cruiser. It is painfully inaccurate. I've been playing it a lot and it is such a frustrating experience because you gotta remember that these Alaska shells, they are very slow. The shell velocity is incredibly slow on these things, so it requires a lot of bleeding. Usually you get rewarded if your aim is good, but not so in the Puerto Rico. So in the Puerto Rico you're stuck in this situation where you're this big clumsy battleship that easily gets spotted. Your shell, they see you when you shoot, you have to give a fair bit of broadside, use all your guns, and then your shells take ages to get there, and unlike the Alaska, most of the time you're not even rewarded with any big hits because your dispersion is battleship levels. Compared to Alaska that obviously has significantly improved dispersion in comparison. Sure, Puerto Rico has 2.2 sigma, but trust me, that's nowhere near enough. The difference in dispersion is night and day between these two. Secondaries, probably not worth getting into those. No one really cares about those. Another thing worth mentioning is the AA. Now, but you might go, but Flamu, Puerto Rico has 6k AA, whereas Alaska has 5.8. Yes, but the actual difference in AA is significant. Mostly because short-range continuous DPS on the Alaska is 245 to Puerto Rico's 186. Mid-range is 375, and it's also got significantly more flak puffs that it's throwing out. So, in terms of max efficiency on AA, Alaska's got like 20% more. That's a pretty sizable gap. So, AA power, maybe 50%. Let's say 15% more AA. Now you gotta remember, Alaska is tier 9. It's the lower tier, and it still has better AA. To sum it up, the Alaska actually beats the Puerto Rico in dispersion, reload, range, concealment, air concealment, AA power. It beats him in all of these. And not to mention, of course, the turret layout is much better on this thing, and it beats it in agility, significantly in rudder shift and in turning circle. Alaska is a fun ship to play. Alaska is one of the most enjoyable ships to play in the game, in my opinion. It was historically considered supposed to be a cruiser killer, and in the game it is very much a cruiser killer. This improved AP angles with this hard punching AP allows you to sit at pretty much every single cruiser in the game, and you can even be a threat to battleships. The tankiness, the concealment, and pretty decent maneuverability means that you are painful to deal with. You can just pop out disappear into concealment, pop out with the radar, and just ambush ships. It is a powerful ship. Puerto Rico, on the other hand, just a nightmare. Horrendously unfun. Too clumsy, too poor concealment, and fighting other tier 10s. I've been trying to compare to Puerto Rico, like, which tier 10 do I think, would I play this over any other tier 10 ship? And honestly, I can't think of a single one. There is not a single tier 10 ship in the game right now that I would consider being worse than the Puerto Rico. Like cruiser, that is. Not a single cruiser I would consider being worse. Everyone has an edge on something compared to the Puerto. You gotta remember, they both eat those improved, those extra long fires. But, of course, Alaska has better concealment and significantly smaller size. Like, the size difference on these things is huge. Because, as I mentioned, it's basically a smaller Montana, the Puerto Rico. It's gigantic, so it's very, very easy to farm. This is, by the way, something worth mentioning, that 28mm upper belt that you might consider to be pretty useless on the Alaska. It's actually just enough to shatter Soviet DDs running IFHE and light cruisers, 127mm gun cruisers running IFHE. For example, Atlanta. 28mm is actually enough to shatter that. They pen 27 but not 28. So that one extra millimeter can actually have some advantages. Overall though, I've been playing them both, and those who have been watching my stream have been seeing me play the Puerto Rico. You can squeeze out some decent games, but considering the insane cost, considering the horrendous work you have to go through to get it, either you have to pay a ridiculous amount of doubloons, supporting Wargaming's horrendous new bait and switch tactics of, haha, please invest some money, oh whoopsie daisy, this is actually impossible, oh please try to grind the ship, oh it's actually impossible to get, you have to invest money. You can support that crap, or you can just use free XP to get a good old-fashioned Alaska for the cost of basically one directive at the end of the Puerto Rico grind. So Alaska, great ship. This game though, I got 100k damage. The enemy has basically all 3 caps. I'm trying to blind fire to reset this cap because we really need to get some caps back. My team has managed to push A and C though, so there's still some good chance for us to recover this. Turpits goes dark. The HE chance on these shells isn't really that impressive. It's 27mm, but when you're considering 17.6 second reload and not cruiser dispersion, more like battle cruiser dispersion, it can be a bit iffy getting a lot of fire started. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be shooting it. Note that, unlike the Kronstadt, in Kronstadt you want to shoot, in this situation, if I was a Kronstadt, I'd be shooting AP at that Leon. That's because Kronstadt has completely ridiculous AP penetration. Alaska doesn't quite have the same values, and they do fall off. In fact, at this, what I'm shooting 18 kilometers away, my AP penetration is like 330-ish. So that's not really going to be enough. Whereas HE fires and HE are always going to be consistent. Keep in mind, of course, because of the large caliber, you also have 51mm HE pen, which means you can farm a lot of the battleships with HE. And you can farm the likes of Stalingrads, you can farm Moskvas, all of these you can punish with HE if they try to angle against you. Musashi, hiding behind island. I'm gonna see if we can get some fires going on this guy. Ideally, I would like to get undetected so I can just sit here and farm. Great dispersion, gets us our first fire. Note that Musashi has 57mm deck armor, so obviously he's going to be shattering our HE. As I mentioned, 51mm pen, not quite enough. That doesn't mean that we can't burn him to death. We angle, of course, in case he decides to shoot us. I don't like positions like this, because I'm spotted, but I can't see his guns. That's why I'm tapping M to get an idea of where his guns are pointed, because if he decides to shoot me, I need to be ready to accelerate. There's always that risk of him taking a shot at me, and yep, that's exactly what he's doing, but I already started accelerating slowly out of position to make sure that if he shot my last known position, it was gonna go a bit wide. He shot a bit too high though, because I went undetected, and in the meanwhile I managed to start 2 fires on him. So I'm just gonna keep working on him. Musashi is a significant threat here, because he's actually one of the few battleships they have that can still overmatch my armor. Musashi and Vladivostok are both capable of overmatching 27mm plating, Tirpitz and Leon are not. So if I get rid of this Musashi, I can play very, very aggressively, because as I mentioned, when angled, the Alaska is a very, very tanky beast. You can get citadeled mostly at long ranges due to plunging fire. At closer ranges, you're kind of difficult, honestly, to get any citadels on. It can happen because they raised the citadel. There was a time when we were completely impossible, but they have made it much, or it's just generally much more difficult. If you compare Alaska to Buffalo, I think it's kind of a night and day situation. The Alaska is just clearly superior. If it wasn't for the fact they've added so many bullshit Tier 9 ships, I would straight up call the Alaska overpowered. It's a great ship for Tier 9. The reason I call it overpowered is because, well, it's just a better cruiser than pretty much all the other Tier 9 cruisers. It's really that simple. You got good AA, you got great survivability, you got amazing guns, good range, radar, defensive AA. It's just massive firepower in general. You bully DDs with the radar, it's longer duration, heavy cruiser radar. You bully cruisers with the AP. You farm battleships, that's a wither just for farming these battleships with HE. It's got so much power. So, when this ship exists, why would you want to spend 60,000 doubloons, or what, $240, to buy a significantly worse ship with terrible dispersion, worse concealment, worse maneuverability, worse reload, worse range, and support Wargaming's honestly kind of disgusting new policy where they're allowing, well, they're bait and switch tactics basically. That's what you gotta call it. It's bait and switch. They want you to invest time. They want you to fall into that sunken cost fallacy, where, oh, I've already spent this much time grinding, and I might as well spend the rest of the doubloons to justify all the work I put into this. They want you to fall into that. So don't fall into that. Don't support the Puerto Rico. Like, seriously. I'm not saying it just because I hate how greedy the whole policy is, but I'm saying that because it's not a good ship. It really isn't a good ship. I played it earlier today, and I struggled to get anything done, and then I switched to the Stalingrad, and I instantly got a Kraken. And these are supposed to be comparable. They're not. And because it's a premium, don't expect to see any buffs for that ship anytime soon. Highly, highly unlikely unless there's some significant mechanics changes. Or although, don't expect to see it. Burning down the Tirpitz. Amalfi left, gonna see if I can hunt him down perhaps. Note that while this ship isn't that fast, it still does 34.6 with the speed flag, so you don't really have too many issues chasing or running away from other ships. Go for the blind fire, in case he went that way. Obviously optimistic at these ranges. I'm not sure where he actually went. I'm still detected though, which is curious, because all the other ships should be out of range, and it turns out they have an AFK St. Louis. Now the reason I chose this commentary as well is because note where I aim. If you want to citadel French cruisers, aim underneath the front turrets. They got this spaced armor, but if you aim right underneath the front turrets, you can actually bypass that spaced armor and you can score citadels. Of course, the improved pen angles on the Alaska allows me to do it here, but see where I'm aiming? Right slightly above the waterline, right at those front turrets. That's where you want to be aiming, and that's where you'll be scoring those citadels. So that was a pretty useful tip people might not have known. It works on the Henry, it works on St. Louis, it works on the Charles Martel. Obviously, Depending on what guns you're using, your success will vary, and they are known for their trollish spaced armor, but it's still a very effective tool of dealing with them. Amalfi got undetected. I'm trying to figure out if he's in front of me. He's not behind the island. So I use radar to see if he's behind the island. He's clearly not, so I know he's somewhere in front of me. So I'm gonna shoot my guns into the water to give an idea of where exactly he's moving by expanding my spotting range. Because the Udala is in a smoke, so he wouldn't spot me. I get detected, so I know he's right in front of me, and that's actually where he is. Trying to see if I can punish him with some AP. He is angling out, but the dispersion is still quite nice on this ship. And, well, if you guys want, I can maybe upload some highlight of the Puerto Rico from my Twitch channel to give you an idea of just what kind of dispersion. I'm not very happy about the Puerto Rico. I think I think it's a terrible ship. And also, the whole way they're marketing it is really bad. Because I made this huge vid highlighting how amazing I thought the whole concept of building the Puerto Rico was. What an amazing new feature they were introducing. Oh, build your own ship. Oh, this is amazing. What a great idea, Wargaming. Well done. And then they pulled this bait and switch on us. It makes me sad. Wargaming tried to issue some sort of apology on the forums and on Reddit, but the apology was basically, I'm sorry you guys figured out that we were trying to bait and switch you, and I'm sorry you guys weren't good enough or dedicated enough to grind for this ship, and here's some ways you can speed up your grind. This is what you get for using the boosters. And then they just, in the middle of their apology, they just start selling out like their boosters for how much they help you grind if you pay the balloons for the boosters. It's the most ridiculous apology I've ever seen. I think it got downvoted to like negative votes on Reddit, and it's got like 300-400 comments on it. not a very successful PR apology, that one. 220k damage, 800k credits. Of course, you make some nice money with the Alaska as well. Remember that tier 10 premiums have some of the worst credit modifiers in the game. Yes, even tier 8 premiums make more money than tier 10 premiums. Keep that in mind. They don't really have any big modifiers. So that's another reason to get the Alaska or the Puerto Rico. You actually make money. Moving to detailed, or sorry, team score, 2.7k base. And another reason to play the Alaska, ever since they fixed tier 8 matchmaking, tier 7 matchmaking has kind of gotten screwed. And you guess who benefits from that? Tier 9s. In tier 9 these days, it's generally just a blessed matchmaker right now. You end up against a ton of tier 7s, you tend to end up in full tier 9 games quite often, and the best part about these full tier 9 games is that there's actually no carriers in them. This is absolutely the highlight of the day, right? When you get a full tier 9 game and you realize, wow, we have no carriers. So, multiple reasons to get the Alaska. Detailed report. 50k damage taken, AP 61k, AP 98k and HE 61k, and another 61k fires on top. Because this thing starts a fair bit of fires as well. A bit of 42k damage upon my spotting, a bit of potential. Overall, Alaska is a great ship, so if you're hesitating, should I get the Puerto Rico? No, get the Alaska. If you have the Alaska, then don't get the Puerto Rico, because it will absolutely feel like a downgrade. That's all it feels like, a massive downgrade. Let me show you guys my recommended build for this ship. Right. As usual, well actually, I can show you the Puerto Rico. This is the press account, so they gave us the Puerto Rico. As I mentioned, the size on this ship, just to give you some size comparisons here. The size on the Puerto Rico is just gigantic. It is a huge ship. You can probably see just from that, the way the camera basically has to zoom out. This is the size of this ship, and then when we switch to Alaska, that's how much smaller the ship is. And more importantly, the armors on this ship, very similar, just a couple of millimeters more for the Puerto Rico, and it still has that same 27mm nose issue, so you don't really get any actual benefits. You're getting a bigger, clumsier, worse ship. This is not a fun experience, trust me on that. That is not a fun experience at all. And neither is this, well, with the captain is 13 kilometers. Still not a fun experience. Also, the plane spotting range, I think it's 9 kilometers on the Puerto Rico. It's 7.9 on the Alaska, which is obviously, in this age of all these carriers, much more enjoyable. Upgrade-wise, consumables, pretty straightforward. I like defensive AA because, as I mentioned, the AA on this ship is actually pretty good. 1.7k, 110 continuous, 5 flak. What did Puerto Rico actually has? It all 6 flak, 151, 1.8k, and then it's got mid-range 441, close 195. Alaska has close 257, 394. Obviously the continuous damage is where it's at, because a good carrier will simply dodge your flak. Overall, don't expect either of these to be any sort of AA monsters. They're decent AA ships. Alaska is a bit better. Well, more importantly, Alaska is mostly better because you have an easier time dodging the strikes because of your maneuverability. Premium consumables, you can afford it if you have the Alaska. Turret survival, a radar duration, improved dispersion on the main guns, faster rudder shift, concealment, and a reload booster. As for the stats on the ships, I'm actually interested. I've been playing a fair bit on this press account. Let's see. I'm genuinely curious now. Where's our Puerto Rico? I played 8 games in Puerto Rico, 99k average, 50% win rate, 2.6 destruction. Alaska I played 16 games, same average damage, much better win rate, much better kill to death ratio. It's just, Alaska is a carry ship, Puerto Rico is a target to be farmed. For me, it's pretty straightforward. The fact that even with the additional gun, the damage hasn't gone up at all tells you all you need to know about just how poor this dispersion is. In fact, to give you a better idea, we can probably look at the max range dispersion. Let's see, we have max range here. Dispersion is 231 meters at 18.8. And comparatively, Alaska is 193 at further away. So that's a 40 meter difference on the max dispersion size. That probably gives you already some idea of just how much worse Puerto Rico's dispersion is. Captain build wise, you can run your standard battleship captain. That's what I'm doing. This is I think I run this guy on Ohio, I run this guy on Montana. Priority target, adrenaline rush, superintendent, concealment expert. You want fire prevention because this is a large cruiser. It gets increased fire duration, so you really want to reduce those fires. Faster turret traverse, expert loader, and finally faster consumables. Useful on BBs for the heals and damage con, useful on cruisers for all the same things, as well as radar and defensive AA. Flag wise, I'm running standard combat flags, but priority wise, heal, speed, consumables, fire reduction. Those are the most important. Then you can mix in stuff like flooding reduction and AA and detonation. Anyway, that was my Alaska commentary. I tried to enjoy the Puerto Rico despite the terrible dockyard event, but honestly, the ship is just a worse Alaska. There is literally no reason whatsoever to get it. I'm actually kind of happy, because I'd be really sad if the Puerto Rico was a great ship and everyone would be forced to pour in a lot of doubloons to stay competitively relevant and get that ship. But luckily, the ship is trash, so we dodged the bullet, boys. Thank you for watching. Thank you, as always, if you take the time to drop a subscription or follow me on Twitch. I appreciate the support, and I will talk to you guys later.